Hi everyone, and welcome back to First Coffee Crochet. In this tutorial we're going to go over how to make the Spiked Crochet Potholder. This potholder was made to match the Spiked Crochet Dishcloth that was released earlier this month, and I'll leave a link for that down in the description below if you'd like to check that out. Okay, so the pattern is in US terms, and the starting chain at the beginning of each row does not count as a stitch. If you want to change the width, your initial chain just needs to be a multiple of 3 plus 1. If you'd like to change the height, you just need to change the number of times you do the repeat row. The finished size as written is 8 inches tall by 8 inches wide. And when making a potholder, you want to use a 100% cotton or wool yarn that doesn't have a coating on it, since these are in contact with very hot surfaces. When making the initial foundation chain, you want to make sure to make the chains loose. Now you can either do that by just making the chain loose, or you can use a bigger hook size just for the foundation chain than what we use throughout the rest of the pattern. So to make this pattern, you'll need 150 yards of a cotton number 4 medium weight yarn. The yarn I did use in this is Lily's Sugar and Cream. You want to use a 4.5mm crochet hook, and if you'd like to use the bigger hook for the foundation chain, you can use a 5.5mm hook. You'll also want to have a yarn needle to weave in your ends, and stitch markers are a very good idea to use, especially when we're putting the two squares together. As always, there is a written pattern available for this on my website, and I'll leave a link for that down in the description below. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to be making is a square, and we're going to be doing this twice. So after you make the one, you'll want to make another one of these. So to start out, you'll create your slip knot, and for our foundation chain, we're going to make a chain of 28. And you want to make sure to make these chains loose as you're doing this foundation chain. If you have a hard time doing that, you can always use a bigger hook size to make the foundation chain. Just use a 5.5mm. So once we have our foundation chain, for row 1, we're going to be doing single crochets all the way across. And we're going to want to work in the back loop of this. So if you take your foundation chain and you turn it over, you'll see these little bumps here, and that's what we'll be working in. So to start out for row 1, we'll be working in the second chain from the hook. So that's the first one, and this is the second one. We're just going to insert our hook under that, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. And we're just going to do this all the way down. And at the end of row 1, you should have 27 single crochet stitches. Okay, so once you're at the end of row 1, for row 2, we're going to be doing a regular sedge stitch. So to start out, we're going to chain 1, turn our work. And then in this first stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. And then in the next stitch is where we're going to do our first sedge stitch. And that is just 1 single crochet into that stitch. And then in that same stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And then again in that same stitch, we're going to do a double crochet stitch. So you'll yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through 2 more. You're going to then skip 2 stitches, and then in that following stitch, you're going to do the same thing: a single crochet, a half double crochet, and double crochet. So you'll skip 2 stitches again, and then in that following stitch, we're going to do the same thing. You're just going to repeat this all the way across. Until you have 4 stitches left at the end after your final sedge stitch. So just do this 5 more times, and you should have 4 stitches left at the end of that 5th time. So once you've completed that last sedge stitch and you have 4 stitches left in your row, you're going to skip the final 2, and then the next to the last one you're going to do 1 single crochet stitch, and then in the last stitch of the row we're going to do a half double crochet. So now for row 3 we're going to start doing our spiked sedge stitch. So for row 3 we'll start off by chaining 1, go ahead and turn our work, and then starting in that first stitch we're going to do a half double crochet, and then in the next stitch is where we're going to do our first spiked sedge stitch. So we'll start out by doing 1 single crochet and 1 half double crochet in that next stitch. Now we're going to do a double crochet, but instead of putting the double crochet here in the same stitch we've worked our single crochet and half double crochet, we're doing it 2 rows below. So this is 1 row below, and that is the stitch we were working in, and then 2 rows below is this stitch here. So you're just 1 below the previous row that you're working in. So you'll just do a double crochet into that, insert your hook down into that, and you'll want to pull this up so that your loops are even. You don't want it tight down like this. You want to make sure to pull it up so they're even. And then you'll just finish this off like a normal double crochet. So then we're going to skip 2 stitches, so that's the first and second, and then in the following stitch, which is the previous single crochet of a sedge stitch, we're going to do a single crochet and a half double crochet, and then like before we're going to do a double crochet in the stitch 2 rows below. So that is not this one that we were working in, but this one here. And make sure to pull that up so our loops are all even. Finish that off. Skip 2 stitches, and then we're going to do the same here. Do 1 single crochet, 1 half double crochet, and then in the stitch 2 rows below, that's where you put your double crochet. So just repeat this 5 more times, skipping 2 stitches, and then doing your spiked sedge stitch. At the end of the last spiked sedge, you should have 4 stitches now at the end of the row that are empty. We're skipping 2, and then in that next to the last stitch, we're going to do 1 single crochet, and then in the last stitch, we're going to do 1 half double crochet. So now we will be repeating this rows 4 through 21. So again, just to show you how to do this, you'll chain 1, turn your work. In that first stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. In the next stitch, do 1 single crochet and 1 half double crochet. And then your double crochet will go into 2 rows down. So this is the row below, and that's 2 rows down. Skip 2 stitches, then do the same in the next. 1 single crochet, 1 half double crochet, and then your double crochet will go 2 rows down. So not this one, but this one. Just make sure to pull those loops up. And again, we're going to do this all the way across until there's 4 stitches left at the end. And at the end of these rows, just like before, when we have 4 stitches left, we're going to do a single crochet in the next to last stitch. Then we're going to do a half double crochet in the last stitch. So you'll just repeat that all the way up through row 21. Okay, at the end of row 21, for row 22, that's going to be the last row of the square, and we're just going to be doing single crochets all the way across. So we'll chain 1, turn our work, and starting in that first stitch, we're just going to do a single crochet, and we're going to continue that all the way across the row. Okay, so once we finish row 22, now we're going to go in and do the border. We'll go ahead and turn our work to the side here and start going down the side. And we're just going to be doing single crochets all along the border. Now what's important here is that when you go down the side, make sure to keep count of how many stitches you do down this side, because when we get to the other side here, you need this to match the same number of stitches here. And when you do your second square, that number of side stitches will also need to match the number of side stitches that you did on this square. Now on the 3 of these that I've done, I've ended up with 24 stitches down each side. And what we'll be doing is just evenly spacing single crochets. There's not really an exact place to put these. Just the most important thing when doing this is just make sure your stitch counts match up on the opposing sides. Your top and bottom here will match up because we have the same number of stitches on the tops and bottoms, since that's the way we were going when we were stitching. So we'll just chain 1, and then going down this first side, we'll just start doing 1 single crochet, evenly spaced. And it can be a little difficult to get them in here because you don't have exact stitches on the side here. So just do these all the way down the side until you reach the end, and just take note of your stitch count. Okay, so right at the corner here, you'll see this is our first stitch on our bottom, and that's what we're going to consider our corner, and we're going to do 3 single crochets into that stitch. And then down this end, we're just going to do a single crochet in each stitch. And in the last stitch of this row, you're going to do 3 single crochets because that's going to be our corner stitch. Okay, and now we're at that last stitch of the row, and we're going to do 3 single crochets into that. And this is our slip knot from where we started the square. And we're just going to kind of do those around this. So this way we just hide the slip knot and this tail. Okay, now we're back to the other side. So we're just going to go down again and evenly space single crochets and just make sure our stitch count matches the number of single crochets we did going down this side. And you can just leave this tail here and go ahead and just stitch around that. And that just leaves you less ends to have to weave in. And once we're at the end of this, now we're at the top again. And in that first stitch, that's going to be our corner. So we're going to do 3 single crochets into that. And now we're just going to do a single crochet in each stitch all the way down until the last stitch of the row. This is the last stitch of the top. We're going to put 3 single crochets into that because that's our last corner. And then we're just going to slip stitch to join our first stitch of our border that we did. Okay, so after you finish this up, you'll want to make a second square following the same steps that we just went through. And if you finish your second square, don't fasten off or cut off any ends here. This is where you're probably going to want to bring out some stitch markers. Now we're going to join our two squares here together. And these are both the front sides, so we'll take this one and turn it over. And you want to make sure your stitches are going in the same direction here. Don't do this to where this is going this way and that's going that way. You want it this way. And here we can be sure that your stitches match up for counts. Now when lining these up together, what I like to do is take a stitch marker and find the middle corner here. Because remember, we did 3 stitches in the corner. So I'm going to take the middle one. I'm going to put a stitch marker in that. And then on the other side, I'm going to find them. On the other side, I'm going to find the middle one here. So if you look at this, we have our 3 stitches. This is our middle one. Go ahead and join that with our stitch marker. Okay. And we're just going to do this for each corner. Just find your middle corner on each side and join that with your stitch marker, so that way you have everything lining up as you go around for your border here. Okay, now that we have our stitch markers in our corners here, and then we're just going to go into that first stitch. We're just doing single crochets all around this for the joining border. So you'll just go through the front stitch here and then find the corresponding stitch on the back and go through that, and then just do a single crochet as you normally would. And at each corner stitch where you have your marker, you're going to do 3 single crochets. So we're just going to do this all the way around, and at each corner we're going to do 3 single crochets. Now I purposely on this one had the stitch count off. So as you can see here, I've got 1 extra stitch back here and no extra stitch up here. So if you do find that your stitch count is off and you have an extra stitch somewhere, it's okay. Just go ahead and throw an extra stitch in and cover that one up. And now that we're at the corner, we'll take our marker out and we're going to do 3 stitches into that. So that's all we're going to do around this, is just go down each stitch, put in a single crochet to join, and in the corners do 3. So I'll meet you back here once we get around to here to the last corner. So once you're at that last corner, you'll just go ahead and do 3 single crochets into that. And then we're just going to slip stitch to our first stitch of that joining border. Now you can either go ahead and fasten off and weave in your ends, or we can add a ring to it so it has a little handle you can hang it with. So to do that, we'll just continue on from where we are and we'll go ahead and chain 10. You can change the size of your ring by increasing or decreasing the amount of chains that you do initially. You'll just have to adjust the amount of single crochets that you do. And then we're just going to use a slip stitch to join that to the previous stitch right before we started the chain. So this one here. Now we're going to do single crochets into the ring, and we're going to do 15. Now if you changed your chain size, you'll just need to adjust the number of single crochets. And if you find you need a little more than what the pattern calls for, that's okay too. You just want it to be filled in. And once we're at the end, we're just going to go ahead into this stitch that we started our chain off of. We're going to do a slip stitch to join it. And now you can go ahead and fasten off and weave in your ends and enjoy your new pot holder.